Good morning. This is Kelley Hobart from Alpaca Direct. And I'm here today talking about how you might be able to take a pattern that's meant for knitting flat, meaning you knit one side, turn your work over, knit, and so on and so forth, and take that kind of pattern and convert it into a pattern that's knit in the round so that you could use for leg warmers, hats, mittens, all that kind of stuff. So it's a great skill to learn, and you would be so surprised at how easy it is on 99% of the patterns out there. So I wanted to take a look at a couple of the patterns and see if we can convert the pattern live with you. And this pattern right here is an example. It's kind of a chevron that I have, and I'm making a cowl with it. And it is, do you see the pattern on it? It is super easy to do, and like I said, it was a pattern that you're supposed to, in this Treasury of Knitting Patterns by Barbara Walker, she shows you all these different patterns. Let's see, it says that it has 500 different patterns in here. And I can show you how to make these flat patterns that are written for flat, and I'll show you how I know that it's for flat. For knitting flat as well as knitting in the round, so that you can decipher all these things on your own, and you can take a look of, maybe you have this favorite pattern at home that you already own the pattern, and it is for a regular scarf and you want to make leg warmers out of it. You could convert the pattern yourself by just using a piece of paper and a pencil or a pen and writing that pattern out and making it for knit in the round, so you could have stuff that's matched. Using the same pattern, especially if you like the pattern that you're using, it's really nice to be able to use it in different ways. So now every week we have a prize, and for this week I wanted to offer some superwash merino, and this is an Alpaca Direct yarn made in Peru, and we have kind of red or sapphire blue, so red or blue. And you guys choose. You vote on which one you like the best, and whichever one gets the most votes, then we send that one out in the mail to the winner.
What do you like about that yarn?
Well, it's a machine washable yarn, which always makes it nice, and it's merino, right? It's all merino. So if you're looking at different kinds of wool and you see there are different kinds, like Peruvian Highland wools, not quite as soft as a merino wool. So this is merino. And it is very nice, and it's machine washable.
Didn't you think it was one of the best superwash walls?
Yeah, I think it's super, super nice. It knits up beautifully and no itch next to your skin. So what's not to like about that? So that is the prize for this week. And then our prize for last week was a choice of stitch markers in locking stitch markers, meaning the light bulb ones. And then what are these ones called?
Those are just the circular ones.
Oh, locking stitch markers in colored. They're colored. So you can choose between the locking type stitch markers or just the round circular stitch markers in small and large. So that's what was the prize for last week, right?
Yeah.
And these are I love these little stitch markers.
Those are the winners too.
Yes. Oh, they are the winners?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I love them. You know why I love them? Because they're thin. Some stitch markers are really thick, and they get in the way of your work, and they almost change the tension between the stitch marker, like it leaves a little bit too much yarn in between the stitches. And so these stitch markers don't do that. And as you all know out there, if you watched any of my videos, I love having different colors because I use the different colors. I like to use pink for the beginning of the round, or and then use different colors for different stitch patterns. So if I'm doing a bunch of different stitch patterns, for instance, I might use, different colors for each stitch pattern in between the stitch patterns. So it's totally fantastic. So I wanted to take a look at these patterns, how easy it is. There are so many people out there that are such good knitters, and I don't think some of them need to be transfused with a little bit of what do you call it when you reach for more? When you're trying to further yourself in knitting, just reaching and trying to do a little bit more. So by buying a book like this by Barbara Walker, who she has, I can tell you, I have probably 30 patterns or more that the patterns come directly out of these books. directly. I mean, there's this pattern called the Freeze Cowl, and in the pattern book, it actually calls it Freeze. The pattern is named, and it's like an $8 pattern, so it's not any small thing. So if you learn how to do this skill, you'll be saving your money on knitting patterns. And you know, most of us out there, if we've done a chunky weight hat pattern before, a few times before, we know how many stitches we need to use already. So getting a general idea of how many stitches we use for these different things. And like for socks, what there's usually in a fingering weight yarn for socks is 56, 60, or 64. And you know which one fits you. For me, it's 56. I don't do 60 unless it's colorwork, and then I like to do 64. So it kind of depends on what you're doing. But I'll tell you, if you've knit a lot of patterns, you know what stitch counts you need. So that really is some useful information for you to be able to use to convert these patterns.
How do they get on the price?
So all you do for the price is you post comments in the comment section. You tell us what you're working on. If you have a lovely pattern, don't forget to put the name of the pattern and the designer, and maybe where you got it or a little bit about it. Or some people even give us a little picture of what they're working on, which is cool too. And yes, and then you vote, and that's the way you're entered to win. And every week like this week is for 2 skeins, 2 skeins in red or blue, and you choose which, and the winner will get 2 skeins of whatever color you guys like best. And I like you guys voting because what it does is helps me understand what colors you're interested in. So it helps me with all kinds of stuff, but it's always a good idea for me to, you know, keep up to date at what all of you are doing and what colors you like. So anyway, let's take a look at these patterns and see what we can do here. So I have my cowl pattern that I was working on, and I have little sticky notes here. Sorry, all these little sticky notes are patterns that I have either used or I really like, okay? And so the pattern that we're going to look at right now is called the Crest of the Wave. And this is the pattern that I'm doing the cowl out of, right? So when I originally cast on, it says multiples of 12 plus 1. Now remember, see how these swatches, see this swatch up here, how it's knit flat? That gives you a great big hint. You can actually see the swatch and tell that it's knit flat. All these patterns in here, I think, just about, I haven't run across one that is not knit flat. But so I wanted to convert mine for knitting in the round. And so I tried 156 stitches. And then if you look at my little math here, my cowl, I wanted it to just go over my head. So 22 inches around is what your head is. So you want it, I wanted mine just a little bit bigger than that, more like 25. And so if you look at this right here, I had 156 stitches, and it was 32 inches. So what I did is I ended up decreasing the stitch count and doing I did 108 stitches just to be sure that it would be big enough, right? So now let's take a look at, so the first thing I like to do when I'm converting my pattern from flat to from knitting it flat to knitting it in the round is I take on here, it says repeat rows 1 through 12. And then I know on here that the multiple of 12 stitches plus 1, that one stitch is evening out either side of a flat knit project. Does that make sense to you, Jim? So they needed the one more stitch on the other side of the flat knit project to make both sides even, right? So a lot of them, I'll say, like this pattern right here, multiples of 34 plus 2. So when you see something like that, it's a multiple of 34. If you're going to do it in the round, you don't need to make the flat piece even on both sides. It's just going to be a repeat of the picture over and over and over. I don't need to make this side and this side completely even because it's in the round. It's not flat. It's not like a flat project that I have to make it look good on both sides and put a couple extra stitches over there. I don't need to. So you disregard that plus 2, and on this instance, it's plus 1. So it's just a multiple of 12. Also note that odd number rows are right-sided rows. Now that makes that you have to remember, because when you're knitting in the round, it's on the front of your project. So the right side of your project is the front side of your projects. So if you are saying that all odd numbers, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, and 11 are the exact same pattern, you do not have to change those numbers. So 1, 3, 5, and 7, you don't have to change unless the very beginning is garter stitch, and garter stitch is obtained. You can see in the picture right here, it's garter stitch. Garter stitch, when it's knit flat, is 1 row of knit, 1 row of purl, 1 row of knit, 1 row of purl. And you can see in here there's 2 garter ridges. So we need the 4 rows of the actual garter stitch before we start. So we cast on, we purl a row, we knit a row, we purl a row, we knit a row. And then remember, the 5, 7, 9, and 11 are not changed. They're as the original pattern would tell you. So on this one, it tells you knit 2 together twice. Then it tells you yarn over, knit 1 3 times. Then it says do a yarn over. Then it tells you slip, slip, knit twice. And then finish it off with a knit 1. So you do that all the way to the end of the round. And these rows 5, 7, 9, and 11, if you look at them, they're exactly the same. Ta-da! So that makes it really super easy so that you know what the pattern is. It's super, super easy. That's why I sometimes, if you guys you see charts and you get a little confused. When I was more beginning to learn how to knit charts, a lot of times I would write them out like this, and I wouldn't put it in Google Docs like I've done here. I would just put it on a sheet of this yellow paper, okay? And then I'd write it out, because writing it out would help me visualize in my mind what I was doing. And I'd go, all I have to do about this whole pattern is memorize this 1 row, and then I can basically throw the pattern out. I don't need it again, because I know that I have 2 garter ridges followed by this yarn over sequence, and then and a knit round, and then the same sequence over and over and over. So you see how easy it is? Isn't that cool? So you can easily do that on your own. Let's look and see if we have on here. Here's a different feather and fan pattern, and this one is the odd rows again are knit rows. So, and it's repeat rows 1 through 4. So if the odd numbers are knit rows, if I was writing that pattern out, I would go knit. So all across this row, I'm going to knit and knit. And then if you look on here, number 2 is a purl row, but remember, it's knit flat. So that what they're doing in this picture is making stockinette stitch. Okay? So they're going to do a feather and fan section. Then they're going to do a row of garter stitch. So if you look here, this one is on the right side. We have, this one is a knit. So we had knits and knits on the front here. And then this row number 2 is a knit. Okay. And oops, on row number 3 is the actual, on row number 3, we're going to do the feather and fan part, which is knit 2 together. So we're going to do a knit 2 together times 3. And then we're going to do a yarn over, knit 1. And this one is times 6. And then a knit 2 together times 3. And that's the whole pattern. And then on here, they had, this one was the row number 3 is a right-sided row, and so on the wrong-sided row, they knit back, which means that's where they created the garter stitch row. So instead of knitting, we're just going to change this from a knit row to a purl row. So we have 2 regular knit rounds. These are now knit in the round, 2 regular knit rounds. Then we have the decreases and yarn overs, which are making the feather and fan pattern. Then we have 1 purl round, which is making the garter stitch row. And then we just repeat rows 1 through 4 for the pattern. Isn't that easy? So now let's look and see if there's another one. We could look on the same side. So this one right here is a multiple of 12 stitches, and you just decide how big you want your pattern to be. You could look at a hat pattern or a cowl pattern that you've used before in the similar weight of yarn, and then you'll have an idea about what you like. So you kind of have to mess around with the, or you could just use the label that's on the back of your yarn. I'm just going to reach over here and we can read the back of the label and see how many stitches per inch. So all you would have to do is take a tape measure around your body and see how big around you want your cowl or whatever to be. And then this says 20 stitches per 4 inches. So what that tells you is for 4 times 5 is 20. So 5 stitches per inch. And then all you have to decide is how many stitches, how many inches around you want it to be. And you multiply it by 5. And you can get a general stitch count. And then you take that similar that count, and then you would take it to something like this where it says a multiple of 12, and you're going to get rid of that plus 5 because you know we're going to make it in the round, so we don't need the other edge. We're not knitting back and forth. We don't need those 2 edges to look the same because it's going to be one continuous piece all the way around a circle. And then this one it says wrong side and all other wrong side rows purl. So if, mind you, it's knit flat, okay? So this is repeat rows 1 through 8. So if I take my, let me grab another piece of paper. First thing I would do is go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And on mine, it's a wrong-sided row is purl. So these are rounds now. They're being converted from rows to rounds, and it says this is the wrong side. So we know in this pattern, if you look at it, it's stockinette stitches. So we're going to convert, instead of saying wrong side and other wrong side rows purl, we're going to say knit, because we're not moving our we're not knitting in one side and then flipping it over. We're knitting on that front side of the fabric all the time. So all you would simply do is all wrong-sided rows, our rounds are now going to be knit, because everything is on the right side, not the wrong side. And if we ask ourselves, what is the back of a purl stitch? Is a knit stitch, right? So that is what we're going to be doing, knitting across rounds 1, 3, 5, and 7. Okay, so on here it says for rows 2 and 4, it tells you to knit this pattern. Now remember, this is the front of your fabric. So you just, for rows 2 and 4, we do this. And then for rows 6 and 8, these are right-sided rows, you just follow the pattern as you see it already. So there is nothing to convert except for to write it out so you know what's going on. So this work has already been done for you. It's the front side of the work, and rows 6 and 8, which are now going to be rounds 6 and 8, are going to be exactly the same. Do you see how easy that is?
Yep.
So all I'm telling you is if you like your stuff to match, like I like to make sets of things. Don't you, Jim? I think it looks nice when there's sets of different things. And just being able to quickly convert a pattern that is knit flat, or you can do it exactly the opposite. You can take a pattern that's knit in the round and make it flat just by doing the opposite of what I just said. So instead of making everything knit in the front, you would make it a purl in the front. Because most patterns, the way they do it, the back side of the row doesn't have all the increases or decreases. Only every other row or round has stuff going on. And those parts don't change. So it's pretty easy to do. And then you can make your sets totally match, or you can make cute little cows like the one I'm making. Mm-hmm. This is a chevron pattern you can see on here with some garter stitch in it. Can you see it? Sorry, it's a little bit hard to see. But it's just a chevron pattern with little sections of garter stitch in it. And I want to make it so that when we walk the dogs around our circle where we live is about a mile around. And I like when it's snowy and cold outside, my jacket's kind of opened in the front a little bit and it's cold. So if you put a cowl and stuff it down in there, you can keep the snow out and you can actually keep the warmth in, which is nice because now it's getting to the snowy season. It's cold outside. And I don't know if any of you out there had to endure the winds that we had last night, but it was up to 50 miles an hour. And there's this great big huge tree in our backyard and it's just swaying. And I'm going, oh dear Lord, please don't let it land on our house. Because it's kind of by itself, but the wind was, and we never get wind in our neighborhood, and it was blowing like a Dickens, and we almost lost electricity too. So we had the lamps out and we're getting ready to go. But I love the wintertime because, the change of the seasons are fun. In the wintertime, you get to slide down the hills in the snow or slip through the snow. And then in the summertime, you get to get in the water in our boat. It's what's not to love. We just make sure that we have our alpaca handy for the wintertime because we get cold, or the merino wool. I have so much knitwear that I can't hardly get cold. I have no excuse if I'm not wearing it. That's my silliness.
Well, let her know we got 2,000 pairs of socks.
Oh yes, we got a bunch of socks in, and they're going to be, I don't know if they're all on the website yet, but they will be soon. And so for all of you who are not making your own socks to wear and you want warm feet, check out our alpaca socks. I love them. They are fantastic, hands down. I'm telling you, I probably have told this story 20 million times, but when I was younger, I was always cold. You would never see me as a child. We lived up in Northern California, but it was windy, and the fog would roll in at about 2:30 or 3. Very cold. And so being able to, and then when I found alpaca, I'm like, oh, and it's the whole reason that we got in. Well, one of the reasons. The other, my daughter got us into alpacas doing a 4-H project, but that's another story. Anyway, but I totally love the alpaca. So if you haven't tried our alpaca socks, they are something to cherish. So I hope all of you have a great week. And yes, no problem. I have a couple things. I was thinking about things that I could do for quick Christmas gifts for knitwear projects that I'm going to do for next week. And also we got to check out the winner. You said the winner had these lovely stitch markers, and let's see who the winner is. These are my Alpaca Direct. It doesn't look like a whole lot in there, but it's 40 stitch markers in each one. And these are fantastic. I love them. Okay. So the winner for this week is Kay Sheffield Henderson. Yay! Congratulations, Kay. You won yourself some nifty little stitch markers. And if you haven't tried them, oh boy, you're going to be in for a treat. So all you have to do is contact us at customer service at Alpaca Direct. And we need your shipping address so we can get these lovely little markers out. Yay! Congratulations. Oh yeah, you may not need to contact us, but you can contact us anyway. We always like hearing from you. So you guys have a great week, and I will see you next Tuesday.
not letting me in the right